Lawyers defrauding the needy have recently come under the spotlight. This after a lawyer in the Eastern Cape obtained a 24 million rand settlement for a child left severely disabled by state negligence some 5 years ago. Kolofelo Masedi is a senior legal officer at the Legal Practice Council, and he joins me from Pretoria now to unpack how regulatory bodies like the Legal Practice Council can keep lawyers accountable and improve our regulatory systems. Kolofelo, thank you so much for your time. Now, obviously, the example that we use is one that's been in the news quite a bit over the last few weeks, including Zuko Nonkuba, who said that he didn't feel that the mother of this disabled child was due any of the money that he won over in the settlement. But according to the work being done by your council, that is just one of a number of lawyers being probed by the Legal Practice Council. How vast is this issue?
Correct, Marcel. There is indeed a number of practitioners that we are looking into in as far as fraud, in as far as misappropriation of funds is concerned. So it is a bit of a scourge that we are dealing with, but we are on top of it as a Legal Practice Council to ensure that those that are misappropriating funds, those that are dishonest, or those that are found to be gross in their conduct, whether negligence or otherwise, are being taken to task and brought to book.
Now, I know that we've reported here at ENCA over the last, I think it must have been a few months ago, about there being a spike in medical negligence claims against the health department. I remember the Eastern Cape was one of the provinces where there was quite an escalation in terms of medical negligence claims. Is the fact that there is the spike making it easier, perhaps, for certain so-called legal practitioners to almost operate under the radar and get away with what some people would call murder?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily speak for the department itself, but what I can speak about in as far as the Legal Practice Council is concerned is that we do have measures in place to ensure that at least we keep an eye on our practitioners. Amongst other things, we require our practitioners on an annual basis to inform the LPC of what is happening in their trust account so that we are able to see what traffic in terms of money is going into that trust account and how is it accounted for. So that if there is some sort of this mismanagement, we're able then to investigate accordingly. And if there is a need for us to refer the matter to the courts, for the courts to proceed with any application, be it a suspension or a striking off, we are then able to move with pace to ensure that that is done accordingly. So I'm not quite acquainted with what would happen at the department, but I do understand that we are also then making sure we work hand in hand with all stakeholders, as and when matters come to our attention, we attend to them accordingly as fast as possible.
I suppose I'm trying to figure out what set of circumstances makes it possible for this kind of thing to happen. And I suppose people that perhaps are not legally wise or legally educated, perhaps people who live in the rural areas who perhaps would be more open to be taken for advantage of in this way. Does there seem to be a soft spot where legal practitioners who are looking to take advantage of people seem to be getting away with this kind of thing?
I think more often than not, Marcel, it's a question of information getting disseminated accordingly, especially to the communities in the rural areas where they may not necessarily have access to your internet, where you can at least be able to check whether somebody who comes to you and say, I'm an attorney or an advocate is truly an attorney or an advocate, and whether they are in good standing with the LPC. So more often than not, a lot of people who are in desolate areas, who are perhaps desperate, would probably go to any Jack or Jill who comes in and say, I'm a lawyer, without necessarily having checked whether that person is a legitimate lawyer or not. We do have a platform on our websites and in our offices to be able to check for members of the community. If somebody has come to you and say, I'm a lawyer, you can call us and say, I want to make sure because my matter is critical and I don't want to be taken advantage of. Then we can check for you and we can also verify for you whether this practitioner is in good standing and it's somebody that you can trust with your assets, with your money, and with your legal matters.
Now, you obviously, like you laid out for us, the checks and balances your organisation has in place to try and ensure everything is above board. But there does seem to be more education needed for those on the other side of the spectrum who are using and seeking this legal help.
Yes, indeed. What we have embarked on doing currently is we have started to do road shows, amongst other things, to visit these communities where access to your internet and the likes is not readily available, so that we can at least educate members of the public and also make the LPC readily accessible to them. I think one of the biggest challenges is that more often than not, our offices are based in your more urban areas, and the people who are able to access them are those who have means to do so. So we have then taken upon ourselves as the LPC to try and go to the communities and reach them there so that they can be better assisted and also better educated on how to approach lawyers and legal matters of their concern.
Do you think that there is a need for more regulatory bodies, or is there a need for the various regulatory bodies to work together to try and stop this kind of thing?
Yes, I believe stakeholder engagement is important in this kind of thing, Marcel, because if we are to root any level of corruption as residents of South Africa, it is going to take all of us to come together, work together as a unit. I'm sure we are all aware that the LPC, as much as we are the gatekeeper, as it were, can only do this much. If we are not aware of some of these things that are happening in some of the areas within the countries, we are not able to then hold the perpetrators or these bogus attorneys to book. But if we were to work together with all other regulatory bodies, when they become aware of whatever they become aware of, they let us know. We investigate and we are able to then finalize these matters or to help those people in communities who are not able to access justice easily because of how far they are from some of these systems.
Okay, we can only wish you the best of luck in your work. That's Kolefelo Masedi, a senior legal officer at the Legal Practice Council, joining us virtually from Pretoria.